Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon again to all of you, to all the participants nationwide to this third session, no, of the National Sports Summit, where we will be talking about Grassroots Development Program. I'd like to thank you ahead of time for joining this very important summit so that we can really plan the future of Philippine sports. No?
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Maayong hapon sa tanan o good afternoon everyone. At this point, it is really a great pleasure and a great honor for me to introduce a very distinguished speaker in sports and in physical education. He is a former dean, College of Sports of Physical Education and Recreation of the Mindanao State University, Marawi City, Philippines. He is also a Master of Science in Leadership and Management in Sport and Sports Psychology in the University of Oregon, USA. He is a Fulbright Scholar and UO International Scholar. And he also specializes in sports management, physical education, sports psychology, coaching education. He is the Dean of the Philippine Sports Institute of the Philippine Sports Commission. He is a proponent of the SMART ID, a grassroots sports talent identification and development program, Grassroots to the Greatness, Playground to Podium, and the National Coaching Certification Program. Let's all give a virtual applause to our author, athlete, coach, sport missionary, and international speaker, Professor Henry Daut.
Magandang hapon sa lahat. Assalamualaikum. Greetings of peace from Mindanao, from our Muslim brothers. I would like to take this opportunity to express my thanks and gratitude for that very generous introduction from Ma'am Marian. And of course, to the Philippine Sports Commission for giving me this opportunity to be part of this very significant endeavor in the development of sports in the country. So by sharing with you the content of what we will be discussing today, we will be defining the term and identifying the concepts of grassroots sports, the influencers of grassroots sports, and of course, the status of grassroots sports in the Philippines, what PSC is doing in the field of grassroots sports development, and let us look at the challenges and opportunities for Philippine sports as part of this discussion. So I would like everyone to be part of this discussion, and I know all of you are familiar with the term grassroots. Sports can be as a means to develop a citizen that is participating in sport until they get old, and also for performance sports wherein PSC is involved in terms of developing our elite athletes. So what do we mean then by grassroots sports development? I believe that grassroots sports development is not just about producing child prodigies or wonders. And that is when we talk about grassroots sports as a sport for glory. An example of that is Palarong Pambansa, Batang Pinoy. So we always consider Batang Pinoy, Palarong Pambansa as a grassroots sports program. However, it is about ensuring that every kid has access to the most basic resources needed to practice or participate in sport and gain benefits from it. And this is where the sports for life concept comes in. And when we make an example of this, we refer to PSC's children's games, Larot Saya, or any activity that the community or individuals are doing for the sake of playing, for the love of sport, and for the benefits of sport development. Because these are very important on how we are going to move forward in terms of sports development, not only in the elite, but also in the grassroots. Here we have the human component, and the other one are the support programs that we have. First, any sports program will not prosper if it has no clear program. Okay. Second, any program will not develop if it lacks funding. And I think Commissioner Fernandez highlighted it, the lack of funding. And of course, program funding, but lacking in human resources, you have nowhere to go. So we need to have qualified, adequate human resources to manage or develop programs. And of course, the fourth, infrastructure. And this is what PSC has been doing, improving the facilities around the country. And I hope that local government will have that opportunity to build more structures or offer more facilities for people to participate in sport because it is available. And of course, equipment. I just hope that PSC or any corporation can come up with developing the sports industry where equipment can be produced in our country to lessen the cost. Presently, we are buying equipment, quality equipment from abroad that makes it expensive. And finally, research. I included research because without research, there will be no development. On the major players in grassroots sports development. So one family, the school, the community, the government, the sport associations, the private sector, and the media. All of us will agree that in sport, we learn discipline, respect, integrity, cooperation, teamwork, camaraderie, self-confidence, among others. And through sport participation, we experience those excitement of winning and losing. We develop resilience, coming back, bouncing back after a defeat, and excellence. That means striving to become better. The previous slides prior to the opening, you have seen and heard what PSC is all about, what it is doing, and I just would like to emphasize the four. One, sports leadership. Of course, PSC is the highest governing body of Philippine sports, and it provides leadership in terms of programs, activities. Number two, sports governance. Okay. Number three, sports programs. That's why even in the midst of pandemic, PSC is not resting, is not relaxing, but intensifying its programs and its delivery. And finally, sports funding. We all know that the funding for elite sports is provided by the government through the Philippine Sports Commission. And it also includes funding for grassroots sports. So this is the role of the Philippine Sports Commission. And by working with the Senate and the House of Representatives in partnership with them, we hope that we can get more funding resource to support the plans of the Philippine Sports Commission to promote the development of sports in the country, in the Philippines. We have been hearing about a lot of programs in the Philippines. Do we really have grassroots sports programs? Are they sustainable and effective? Are they general or specific in nature, or is it sports for life and or sports for glory? Now, for my conclusion, I would like to say that grassroots sports is about starting them young. Okay? Grassroots sports development is not just the product, that means production of outstanding athletes. But grassroots sports development is primarily about expanding opportunities for awareness, appreciation, and active participation among the youth to enjoy and gain benefits from sport and physical activity participation. Grassroots sports development is not just the responsibility of one institution or agency like the PSC or the DepEd, but a cooperative of all partnership of all the influencers of sports. So we need to have a strong partnership of all the influencers so that we can bring the grassroots sports development to a higher level. Strengthening sports in the Philippines requires a unified pathway to grassroots sports development. And I think it's high time that all the stakeholders will have to sit down and plan and chart the pathway for sports development in the country. And sustainable grassroots sports development programs will not only produce outstanding elite athletes, but more significantly, develop a healthy, strong, fit, peaceful, socially responsible, and productive citizen. Thank you very much sa question mo, Sir Coach. Yung first na tanong mo is on, kasi yung sa research naman, it is a general na it encompass many things. So kasama na doon yung well-being, yung psychology. The PSC is coming up with a research summit to organize a strong research component for the Philippine Sports Commission, and that is going to be launched, I think, anytime this year. And we would like to inform you that we will be partnering with CHED, especially with the Department of Research, so that we can come up with a lot of research topics that our higher education researchers can go into and to be supported by the PSC. Kasi yun ang kulang talaga natin. We rely so much on the result of the researchers from other countries and apply it to us. And you know, Filipinos are different from Americans. We eat different food. We have different maybe genetic components. But when we talk about research, we need to make sure that it is relevant to us so that we can make use of it. Thank you very much. Actually, it is in the final stage of preparation, and I think one of the senior consultants of the PSCs, Dr. Serge Opena, is finalizing the process on how institution can partner with PSC, the procedure in applying for grants, and the sport-specific agenda that any individual researcher can avail. So we will be making that as part of our preparation, and thank you for your inquiry so that we can include that. And to your question on how we can look at the impact, I think it's first is we need to do some assessment on the number of participants in sports activities. And in the Philippines, nobody had studied that. What percentage of the population are engaged in physical activity? Wala po tayong study niyan. So we do not know how we can approach in terms of sa mga bata, sa mga youth, sa mga adults, sa elderly, etc. And that is where research is really important. So we need help, especially among our HEIs, to come up with research that are relevant for sports development. So if you want to know anong impact, first is the number of participants who are actually participating in the program of PSC, the Children's Games. We have almost 10,000 now, and we would like to make sure that we have data on how many are encouraged to do more activities. So that's very necessary. Second is how many in the schools are also offering programs that will allow people or kids to participate. So the impact is not immediate because we first need to come up with an expanded base. The more kids participating in sports activities, we need to document that. And PSC is making sure that every children's games is recorded in terms of the number of participants, the gender of the participants, the age category, so that in a certain period, we can have a good view on what is happening in terms of participation among women, participation among men, participation among younger generation. Then plans for strategies to enhance and strengthen can follow. So importante po yun. And ang sinabi nga natin na the wider the base, the greater chances of finding talents because we have more choices. Okay. I'm very happy that your players are excelling in various competition. But as to the selection of coaches for the elite team, it is the NSAs that decides. It's not the PSC. So, ang tanong is, ano bang criteria for selection of coaches ng NSA ng event mo? Kasi doon ka magbabase kung baka mag-qualify yung athlete, yung coaches mo. And secondly, there are certification programs that are being offered by NSA, DepEd, CHED, and PSC for coaching certification, wherein we would like coaches to be certified para meron silang seal of excellence na talagang qualified sila mag-coach. That means that they went through the process of learning the fundamentals, the sports science in coaching that will make them better coaches. So you are very lucky because you have developed good athletes, but sometimes the reality is our athletes will have to leave us if they go to higher level of development. So kung sa elementary, hindi ka naman pwedeng sumama sa kanila sa high school kasi elementary coach ka. Sa high school, kukunin naman sila ng mga colleges, especially from the provinces to Manila. So parang bakit ako hindi kasama? Pero what we should be happy about is we have developed, we have produced outstanding athletes. Parang relay ito. You pass the baton after you have developed your athletes. Now, if you want to become a member of the coaching staff, then make sure that you have the credentials that will qualify you to be such. So, ang sa akin lang is, let us not be, para bang, wag nating ipagdamot ang ating mga athletes just because ayaw natin silang mapunta sa ibang coaches. If it is for the benefit of the athletes to go higher in their level of aspiration, then we as coaches should be very supportive because it also brings pride to who we are as coaches and to what we have produced.
Professor Henry said putting premium on grassroots sports goes a long way in promoting a healthy, strong, and productive citizenry. He also shared two concepts of grassroots sports: the sports for life, which is the general approach, improving citizenry's quality of life. The second one is the sports for glory, which is the specific approach, developing players, coaches, clubs, and competitions. A successful grassroots sports program, however, entails a strong collaboration of all stakeholders, both in the government, spearheaded by the PSC, being the country's lead agency in sports, LGUs, other government agencies such as DepEd and CHED, the private sector, private schools, companies, and sports organizations such as the NSAs and POC, marginalized sectors, the women, the IPs, and the PWDs and the media. Professor Henry also underscored the need to equip human resources needed for grassroots sports to flourish, physical educators, coaches, and volunteers to give children a worthwhile and rich experience. Educating leaders is also a vital concern that he raised. He also highlighted the past and current grassroots development program of the PSC, citing its many gains and challenges over the years. Indeed, winning the country's first Olympic gold medal is still possible with a unified, holistic, solid, and strong grassroots sports development program. Thank you so much, Professor Henry. I've learned a lot today.